Most people spend their lives trapped in patterns they don't even recognize, constantly reacting, explaining, proving, defending. They move through life as if someone else holds the remote control to their emotions. But one day, something shifts. You start noticing how much energy you lose just by responding to everything around you, how every little argument, every attempt to justify yourself, drains you. And in that moment of awareness, you realize that silence, something you used to think was weakness, is actually one of the greatest powers a human being can possess. When you begin to pull your energy back, the world starts to respond differently. Suddenly, people who are used to your immediate reactions become uncomfortable. They start questioning you, pushing you, trying to make you react again. Because the moment you stop playing the game, they lose control. You see, your reactions are the fuel that keeps certain dynamics alive. The moment you choose silence, that fuel runs out, and the truth about people begins to reveal itself. Many of us were raised to believe that being available is a form of love, that saying yes to everything makes us kind, generous, or good. But this belief is the root of so much exhaustion. Being constantly available isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of fear. Fear of being abandoned, misunderstood, or unloved. We confuse presence with self-erasure, thinking that giving more of ourselves will make people value us. But the opposite is true. The more available you are, the less people value your presence. Because what is easily accessible is rarely respected. Carl Jung once said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. That's the essence of this inner shift. When you stop reacting, you start observing, and what you see is revealing. You notice how much of your identity was built around others' approval. You realize that half of your decisions weren't made out of genuine choice, but out of fear. Fear of losing people, fear of being disliked, fear of being alone. But when you finally stop and step back, you begin to see how much of yourself you've given away just to keep others comfortable. Emotional availability without boundaries is a form of self-abandonment. It's like leaving the door of your house open all night and wondering why you wake up feeling robbed. Every argument, every over-explanation, every apology you didn't owe. These are little leaks of psychic energy. Jung described this as the psyche's life force, the invisible fuel that keeps your mind, emotions, and spirit in balance. The problem is that most people have no idea how to protect that energy. They let anyone and anything access it, and then wonder why they feel empty and anxious. When you learn to conserve your energy, you start noticing how different your presence feels. You walk into a room and no longer need to prove anything. Your silence speaks louder than your words. It's not about arrogance, it's about clarity. Because when you know your worth, you don't have to shout it. You simply are. True strength is not in reaction, it's in restraint. It's in the ability to choose your response rather than being pulled by every external force. But make no mistake, this change threatens people who depend on your reactions. They'll say you've become distant, cold, even selfish. They'll accuse you of changing because you're no longer predictable, no longer easy to manipulate. Yet what's really happening is that you've stopped playing a role. You're no longer the emotional caretaker, the problem solver, the one who absorbs everyone else's chaos. You've chosen to become whole instead of functional. Manipulative people thrive on emotional patterns. They know what triggers you, what makes you justify yourself, what guilt to press to get your attention. They don't have to shout, they just need to nudge the right button, and you'll do the rest. But once you become aware of this, their power dissolves. Because manipulation doesn't survive in the absence of reaction. Silence disarms control. When you no longer respond, the manipulator loses their script. They're left facing themselves, and that's the one thing they've always avoided. Your unavailability becomes a mirror. It reflects back to others everything they don't want to face, their dependence, their insecurity, their need for control. That's why your silence disturbs them so deeply. They're not reacting to your absence. They're reacting to the emptiness it reveals inside them. And though this may create tension, it's also the beginning of truth, because for the first time, you're no longer cushioning others from the consequences of their own behavior. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires withdrawing from the collective noise. You can't hear your inner voice if you're constantly surrounded by the voices of others. Silence, then, is not an absence, it's a return. It's the place where your own thoughts finally have space to breathe. It's where you stop being an echo and become your own sound. But this silence comes with a price. You will lose people. You'll be called distant, proud, strange. But every accusation is proof that you're no longer available for emotional slavery. As you step deeper into silence, something magical happens. You begin to see clearly who values your essence and who values your usefulness. You see how many relationships were built not on love, but on dependency. And you start choosing differently. You start saying no, not as rebellion, but as self-respect. You start walking away not from people, but from versions of yourself that kept you small. And in that space where noise once lived, you rediscover peace. True silence isn't about muting your voice, it's about mastering your energy. It's the ability to walk away from chaos without feeling guilty. It's the wisdom of knowing that not every battle deserves your fire. It's understanding that explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you is a waste of life force. And so, you stop. You stop reacting, stop defending, stop overgiving. Instead, you start choosing. Choosing when to speak, when to act, when to walk away, and most importantly, when to rest. This journey is not easy. At first, the silence feels heavy. You question yourself. You wonder if you've become heartless. You feel lonely. But that loneliness is not emptiness. It's cleansing. It's the space where your soul reclaims what it gave away. And slowly, that silence becomes peaceful. You start enjoying your own company. You realize that solitude is not isolation, it's alignment. The solitude of the strong is not about avoiding people, it's about no longer betraying yourself for company. Eventually, you begin to see how much power comes from not reacting. The less you explain, the more mysterious you become. The more selective you are, the more valuable your presence feels. People start to notice your boundaries not because you shout them out, but because your energy no longer entertains disrespect. And that's when true respect enters. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that simply exists. Conscious unavailability doesn't mean closing your heart. It means opening it selectively. It means knowing who deserves your attention and who only wants your reaction. It's choosing peace over validation, depth over drama, alignment over approval. And every time you choose this path, you become stronger, calmer, freer. Because freedom isn't doing what you want. It's not needing to explain why. As you evolve, you'll notice something beautiful. The same silence that once made you uncomfortable now protects you. The solitude that once felt like loss now feels like home. The absence that once scared you now becomes your sanctuary. And in that stillness, you realize you were never losing people. You were losing illusions. You were never becoming cold. You were becoming clear. You were never walking away. You were walking back to yourself. So when the world tells you that you've changed, smile. Because yes, you have. You've stopped chasing noise and started cultivating peace. You've stopped living as a reaction and started living as intention. You've understood that true power doesn't shout, it simply exists. And those who can't handle your silence were never meant to hear your truth. Now, if you've come this far, it means a part of you is ready for this transformation. A part of you already knows that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's sacred. You don't owe explanations for your peace, your distance, or your boundaries. You only owe yourself the freedom to be whole. So let the world call you distant. Let them misunderstand your silence. Because in that silence, you are finally becoming who you were always meant to be. And if this message resonates with you, Take a deep breath right now and make a quiet promise to yourself. From today, my energy is mine. My silence is my strength. My peace is my priority.